So this was the application that we created yesterday to connect with database, in which we are adding lot of things, loading the driver class, creating the connection, prepared statements, then giving inputs. Like here only yesterday I told that there are some step which is generally I am combining, and then executing the changes, then closing the connection. And it was working exactly fine, and we can check the same thing in database as well. So we were using a database JDBC2. In that we were having one table as EMP. So this was the data that we did into the table yesterday. And all this data was given with the help of JDBC API. When we are already having this thing, what is the requirement of defining something as Spring JDBC? So let's understand what is the need now. Spring JDBC. First of all, this is not a framework, because if you think Spring it attached with it, so it became my framework. So not at all. Spring JDBC is not a framework. Then what it is? Spring JDBC is a module in Spring framework. What it is? It is a module in Spring framework. And now this module, you can say a separate part, separate chapter, separate unit. Generally, how our Spring is written, if we are calling that this is our Spring framework. Now this Spring framework generally has three things. We call the first part as core container. And in that core container, what we have? We have beans, we have context, means container, application context, we have beans, context, and Spring's expression language. Right? Spring's expression language. After this core container, we have one data access and integration part, where your Spring will be connecting with database. So we call this as data access, means you will take the data from database, and integration, you will integrate the data. This is the layer. Now here generally we discuss about some of the parameters. JDBC means Spring JDBC. Then we talk about JPA, we talk about ORM, we talk about OXM. OXM is not in the use now, so we don't use it. JDBC, JPA and ORM. JPA is Java Persistence API or Jakarta Persistence API. ORM is Object Relationship Mapping. And then we have Spring MVC architecture, where we generally discuss about Spring Web. So this particular part is Spring Web part. In this, we talk about MVC, servlet, struts, but struts is again a framework which is not in used. So this is the Spring architecture. In that, AOP is there in between. We have AOP, aspect oriented programming. We have test module. So these are the one module, core container, Spring Web, Spring JDBC. So this Spring JDBC is a complete one module, right? I have given one architecture also from the Spring's original website. This one. So here you can see that we are having JDBC. It is a separate module. Now what it is? Spring JDBC is an extension and it is built over the top of Sun Microsystem JDBC. So what we are writing that the Springs JDBC is an extension and it is built over the top of Sun Microsystem JDBC. Means the JDBC which is already given by Java, the Springs JDBC is built over the top of it. Like SpringBoot is built over the top of Spring framework. SpringBoot is built over the top of Spring framework. So what does it mean by built over the top? It means that generally you are increasing the capability of something. So here the Springs JDBC is increasing our capability of working with normal JDBC or the JDBC built by Sun Microsystem. So this is Spring's JDBC. Now we will understand what is the difference between normal JDBC and Spring's JDBC. Yesterday we developed an application with normal JDBC. So the steps were in the first step we loaded the at first we have to load the driver. In the second step, connection, you have to create a connection. In the third step we have to write query. I mixed the step because of the time constraint. Then prepared statement, then prepared statements, then giving inputs, executing the query, and then closing the connection. Closing the connection. These were the steps that as a developer I was managing all of them. These are the several steps and as a developer I was managing. At first we loaded the driver class, created the connection. In the prepared statement only I just written the query. Generally you can write the query outside. So this query and prepared statement and input, these three things I have mixed here, means written as a one statement. You can separate them and then executing the query and at last closing the connection. So we did all of these part, all of these by mixing these three. But as a developer I was managing all the things. As a developer I was managing how to load the driver, creating the connection, creating the query, preparing the statement, giving inputs, then executing the query, closing the connection. Now, being a Java developer or a Spring developer, what do you think how many part Spring can handle inside this? Just as a guess it. Can Spring load the driver? we can say that yes, Spring can load the driver, Spring can create the connection. So we can say that yes, Spring can create the connection also. Query, yes, Spring's JDBC can write the query. No, it can't do all actually. It can't load driver also, you will understand it. There are some constraints. Input, can Spring give inputs? No, as a user you have to provide input. How Spring can give random input? So we are going to see that in this complete flow, what are the things that can be handled by the Spring's JDBC. By the way, if we check the architecture of Spring JDBC, as of now we are seeing this particular part, that this is our Java application, this is our Java application. And using this Java application, we are trying to communicate with a database. Using this Java application, we are trying to communicate with database. The earliest method was using the JDBC API. The earliest method was using the JDBC API. And then we were able to communicate with the database. But this time, this is not going to be the architecture. This time we will not communicate with JDBC API. This time we will communicate with Spring JDBC. To whom we will communicate? Spring JDBC. Spring JDBC. This one. Now this Java application will communicate with Spring JDBC, and the Spring's JDBC will communicate with the database. But I have written one line here that Spring's JDBC is built over the top of JDBC, means normal JDBC. Whenever we are writing a SpringBoot application, it internally uses Spring only. In the same way, the Spring JDBC will also use normal JDBC internally. What it will use? Normal JDBC internally, means it is not having capability to directly do the things. It is just easing out your work, that you don't have to do too much work. So in that case, how this flow will go? That between the database and Spring JDBC, normal JDBC will work. The JDBC built by Sun Microsystem, JDBC API. This is the real architecture of it. It means that still you are using that only, but with some extended support by Spring's JDBC. So we will mention the same step, that however internally Spring JDBC also uses JDBC API or JDBC to communicate with the database. Then what is the benefit here? We are saying that this Spring JDBC will also use normal JDBC. Then why we are even studying this part? Is there any benefit of this part? If it is going simple way that we are using JDBC only, then why we are discussing about something as Spring JDBC? So the answer is, when we are using JDBC or when we are using Spring JDBC, we are not communicating with the We are not communicating with normal JDBC. So we are being happy that now we are not talking to JDBC, but we are talking to Spring JDBC. So what is the thing that is making developers happy here? That now we are talking to Spring JDBC. We are not communicating with this JDBC API. So that particular thing is when we are using Spring JDBC, we are not communicating with normal JDBC because Spring JDBC gives us extended support which helps us to remove the use of boilerplate code, which help us to remove the use of boilerplate code. Now what is boilerplate code? So again I will go to normal JDBC. Here I have closed the connection, right? Here I have closed the connection. So let's try to run this program. What I will do, I will run the program again. So I am running it and driver is loaded successfully and operation is also successful. This particular part I will do after closing the connection. Now here connection is closed. After closing the connection, I will try to execute the update. Means I will try to execute the query after closing the connection. So run it. Of course, we are expecting errors, and here we got the error. The reason is no operations allowed after statement closed. That your connection is already closed with the database. Now you can't do any operation. If I want to open the connection again, can I say something like this? Con.open. Is there any method like this? Do we have something con.open? No. Then what we have? Class dot for name connection con equals to null driver manager dot get connection everything again. If I want to open the connection again, I have to do everything again. This is called boilerplate code only. Boilerplate code means something you are using unnecessary, which is not for the use. So boilerplate code means the code snippet that you require to perform some operation. Now here I have closed the connection. After closing the connection, I am trying to save the value, but it is saying not allowed. Okay. Do we have some con.open method? So there is no open method. Means I can't open the connection like this. If I want to open the connection, if I want to open the connection, again these are the steps that I have to write. There is no other choice. This is only boilerplate code. And why we have to write this statement? Because we have closed the connection. So being a developer, we can make mistake when to open the connection and when to close the connection. But if we are using Spring JDBC, this particular part of closing the connection will be managed by Spring JDBC. First thing. So you are not getting any production break. Means your application is running fine. Because unnecessary you don't have to close the connection. Then if Spring is managing closing the connection, then it can manage the connection also, when to open and when to close. So you don't have to close the connection by yourself. Spring will do it for you, right? Who will do? Spring. Now after doing that particular part, this we don't have to write. If we are on Spring JDBC, we don't have to write this also. We don't have to write this also. Okay. Second thing is, let's say I have one more class. I have one more class, something as test class or anything. Now I want to open a database connection in this test class. What are the steps? Can I use the connection by sharing it from this class? Can we share the connection? Can we share the connection? We can share actually. We can share the connection or not? We can share. But again, same code we have to write there. We can share the connection, but same boilerplate code I have to write here also. Same way, class dot for name and loading the driver class. Why? We are writing the code unnecessarily every time. That is not the definition of a Java developer. So what it comes here, that JDBC gives us extended support which help us to remove the use of boilerplate code. It means that whenever you are talking about Spring JDBC, it will give you some extra support so that you can remove the use of boilerplate code. So that you can remove the use of this boilerplate code. Now here we will create a table to understand how many things Spring can do and how many things we have to do. So here we can write um, process, or you can say task, and here we will say Spring JDBC and developer. And what this table is giving, below is the table which tells the feature of Spring JDBC. Now, with the help of this table, we will try to understand what is the benefit of Spring JDBC. So, the very first task that we are going to see here, defining the connection, or we can say loading the driver class, loading the driver class, and making connection. So, the answer is Spring JDBC can't do it, developer will do, loading the driver class and making the connection. Can I ask why? Why Spring can't do these two things, loading the driver class and making the connection? So there are two problems. Driver class looks something like this: com.mysql, and in case of Oracle, oracle.jdbc. Now, how you will tell your Spring that which database you are using? So that is the reason it cannot load the driver class, because it depends on your database and the version also. In case of Oracle, we have two different driver class. In case of MySQL, we have three different driver class, and all the three we can use depending upon the version. And why Spring is not writing connection? Because in making the connection, JDBC colon MySQL colon double forward slash localhost colon 3306. After that, we have to provide the name of database, right? After this, we have to provide the name of database. And how Spring can check the database which is created in my system? For that, Spring should enter inside the client. For entering also, it require password and all. So that is why Spring cannot do these two things: loading the driver class, loading the driver class, and making the connection. It can't do these two things, right? But it will remove the use of boilerplate code. What it will do? It will remove the use of boilerplate code. Means you don't have to do it again and again. Do it only one time and use it anywhere. Spring, right? It will create container, sending the connection somewhere in container as a bean. Use that bean everywhere. So that is Spring JDBC. Next task is making a connection. Making a connection means you are trying to establish a connection. So I should write establishing the connection. So Spring can't do that. But when it comes to opening the connection, connection is built, but you have to open and close also. Yes, Spring JDBC can manage this. That I will manage how you are opening the connection. Understood the difference between establishing the connection and opening the connection? In this particular way, I am trying to establish a connection. And here we are closing it. Con dot close. So in that way, we are closing this. So Spring will manage when to close the connection and when to open the connection, so that you are not worrying about that part. After that, specifying the SQL statement. So no, Spring can't do it. Developer will do this. Who will do? Developer only. Spring can't do. The reason is, again, queries are database specific. Queries are database specific. Database specific means for Oracle some sort of different queries, almost same but somewhat different. Because the int in MySQL is number in Oracle. So that are some small difference. But even though we will remove that also, right? But as of now, these are the statements. Next is declaring the values, or you can say declaring the values. This is the core work of user to give the input. No machine can give the input on the basis of user. So declaring the values is still with the developer only. Spring JDBC will not do it. Then what it will do? Prepare and execute the statement. So the answer is yes. Spring JDBC will do it. Spring JDBC will do. Now let's say there are 5 to 6 values in my database. Here we have 5 values. I want to fetch all these 5 values. You have done reading operation in JDBC. Let's say all the 5 values will come. How you will use these values? Means how you will print them. By running a loop. We have to run a loop. Got my point or not? In this JDBC, I want to fetch the value from this table. How I will fetch? So they will come result set or row mapper, and we have to use a loop. But here in Spring JDBC, set up a loop for iterating through result. Means as a developer, you don't have to write that loop. Spring JDBC will do. It will create a method for you. All the values you can find out. Setting up a loop. What is the error in this code? Now what is the error? The error is these particular driver class and all these are written in such a way that they will throw exception. And we have to add that in our code. Isn't it unnecessary that unnecessarily we are adding some exceptions? So with the help of Spring JDBC, this part also we can remove. Process any exception, any kind of exception, if we are getting any kinds of exception, so Spring will process that, not developer, right? So this exception is processed by Spring only. Handle the transaction means in case if we are getting some problem in the transaction, so the answer is yes, Spring will handle the transaction also. Closing the connection, just now we discussed that yes, Spring can manage closing the connection. Means being a developer, you are actually responsible for loading the driver class, creating the SQL statement. This is also you will remove when we are talking about ORM or JPA. This will also go. So you will technically doing this part and giving the values. That's it. Everything will be automatic. So that is the difference between normal JDBC and Spring's JDBC. So again, we will add upon the things here. These are the detailed theory about this. So it will take time to understand everything. Spring JDBC is one of the solution provided by Spring framework for implementing the persistence layer. For implementing the persistence layer. What is persistence layer? What is this persistence layer? Persistence. What is the general meaning of persistence? Object accessibility. What accessibility? We will discuss. Don't worry. Now, I will ask one thing, that how Spring is doing all these things. What Spring has done with the normal JDBC? What Spring has done with the normal JDBC, that it is actually becoming so powerful now that it can close the connection, it can handle the queries, it can do almost all the things. And we are writing one more line, that Spring JDBC is built over the top of Sun Microsystem JDBC. Then the question is what it has actually done with JDBC. It might have added something there. So there is a question. Question is how Spring JDBC is more powerful than normal JDBC. The answer is Spring JDBC is built over the top of normal JDBC with JDBC template. With what? JDBC template. What we are saying, that Spring JDBC has something as JDBC template. What it has? Something as JDBC template. Now what is this JDBC template? This is my Eclipse ID. If I want to check implementation of any class, how I will check that? Let's say there is a scanner class. I want to check how Java developer has written scanner class. How can I check? So there are actually two options. That at first go to your C drive, wherever you have installed your JDK. So as I have installed in program files and then Java, this one. In that you will get one library folder. So open this and then src folder. It will take time depending upon speed. Then open java.base. Inside that Java, and here you can open util package, this one. And here somehow you will get to see your scanner class. SSS scanner, this one. This is your scanner class written by developers of Java. That the scanner class code will look something like this. The scanner class code will look something like this. I'll show you, wait. Public final class scanner. So you are just creating object of this class every time when you want to take input. This is the one way that you can check this class. The second way is you can open it in your Eclipse only. So just type Control Shift and T, and here search whatever class you want to check. Scanner. Now open this class. So it will open scanner class here in your Eclipse. So this is how scanner class is written. I'm telling this thing because this JDBC template is something like that. So again same thing, JDBC template. So these are the JDBC template class, and this is how it looks. You will see something as data source, JDBC properties, and all these things you will see here. Now let's discuss that what is this JDBC template which is making our normal JDBC so powerful. It is written like this only, JDBC template. JDBC template is a helper class. What it is? It is a helper class provided by Spring JDBC module. Who provides this helper class? Spring's JDBC module. It simplifies the database operations. It simplifies the database operations like it will simplify your database operation like running SQL queries, inserting, updating, and deleting. You can do these operations very easily with the help of update method. So you can just write update method and it will do all the things. What else we can do using this JDBC template? Handling result set, managing the resources. So these are the things that we can do. It means that when your Spring JDBC is trying to communicate with this database, it is actually having modules something like this. So when this database is trying to communicate or this Java application, so Spring JDBC has two things inside. First, normal JDBC API, plus it has JDBC template as well. What it has? JDBC template, which is working in between these two. So this is the architecture which is more simplified actually. Okay. Now, why Spring JDBC is powerful? Why Spring's JDBC is powerful? Because it has JDBC template inside this. What it has? JDBC template. And what is this? You can see this as a class which is giving you lot of inbuilt support that you can do. JDBC template. There is one particular part that is data source, and it is from normal JDBC only, which is same here as well. What is data source? Data source, where data is available. No. What is data source? Connect to data pool. Yes. So this data source is a alternative of your driver manager. If I ask you what is driver manager, then what will be your answer? A way to connect with database? Because here, have you checked the driver manager class? Driver manager. This is the driver manager class. Public class driver manager, and in that we have lot of things, right? These kind of things we are having. Inside this driver manager class, there is a method of get connection, method of get connection, which returns get connection, means connection it returns. The same get connection method is used by us to obtain the connection. So there are lot of pre-built methods are written that we are checking there, and this get connection method is overloaded here. Overloaded method means overloaded method with different name. What is overloaded method? Same name with different parameters. Means you can create method with the same name, but parameters should be different. So this is the driver manager. Same way we have something as data source as well. Data source. Now there is a interface. There is a interface of data source. And what it does? There we have a get connection method, and this is abstract method. Right? This is an abstract method or not? Why? Why it is abstract method? Because it does not have any body. So data source is a interface which gives you same thing like driver manager, right? And there also we have overloaded this with the get connection is the method name here, and here also get connection is the method name, but it is without any parameter, it is with parameters. It is with parameters. So now our discussion will go on to what is data source. So the first line that I can say here, data source is an interface available in java.sql package. Which package? java.sql. Let's open this. So public interface data source is already open. In which package it is available? Java. Okay, so let me open data source. Java X persistence APIs packages. So it is available in Java X.sql packages. What is the work of this data source? So we will say that is used data source is used to used to configure the connection with the database. Now we are not using driver manager. So if you are thinking like that, we are not using driver manager, so we will use driver manager. We will use driver manager. But how we will use along with data source and all that we will see, of course. Data source. It is better than driver manager. What I am saying, it is better than driver manager. Because if we are saying that it is better than driver manager, we will be having some reasons also, right? So those reasons are, it supports connection pooling. It supports connection pooling. What do you understand by connection pooling? Resource pooling, connection pooling, what is that? This you might have studied in threads, right? Resource pooling. What do you understand by resource pooling? This is city A and this is city B. One user has booked a cab from this city A to city B. And it is costing 1000 rupees for this entire distance. How much? 1000. So how resource pooling looks alike, there is some city C in between. Exactly in between of these two cities on the same road as well. On the same road. Now there is one person who is right now in the city C and he or she wants to go to city B. One cab is already going to city B. Now if there is any particular app which supports this city A will stop the cab on this city C. Now this person will board the cab and both of them will reach at city B. Now the person who was started from city A has to pay 700 rupees and 300 will be paid by this city. So what happened here? The resource. What was the resource? Car. Car was the resource which is now shared. Shared taxis, shared autos, those are resource pooling only. Now, as this A person was having load of 1000 rupees, he shared the resource. He shared the resource with this person who boarded the cab from city C. So that is called pooling. That is called pooling only. And I have a patented project on this particular uh, problem. I'll show you. Now I have sold that project, but I still have the access to that. This one, ride sharing. So this was one of my project, ride sharing, working on the same application where rides can be shared. If you are going from one location to another, in between if you find a passenger who is going to same location, he will board and the fare will be shared. I have sent the proposal to Ola, Uber, Rapido, all the three for adapting this, but they were not interested. So I sold it to Germany. Now this is applied in Germany. Ride sharing. Pooling. Pooling means resources are shared. And here we are talking about connection pooling. There was a problem last time. If connection is closed, again you have to open that. There was no option. But here, connection pooling is there. And connection pooling means reusing connections, reusing connections instead of creating a new one each time. This was the problem last time that we had, that every single time you have to create a new connection. Once you closed it, you will create a new connection. But now we will not do that. We can reuse the connection. We can reuse because of this data source interface. This is the one benefit. Last time we were using driver manager, but this time we will not use driver manager. We will use data source because it supports connection pooling. It can be easily managed or configured externally. It is configured externally where either in container, like you can configure it in IOC container. I told you now that using Spring JDBC connection will be in the container. When you want, use it, otherwise it is closed. Or else, if you don't want to keep it in container, you can keep it in application dot properties. I can keep this thing in application dot properties. Where I can keep application dot properties in case of Spring Boot. So if you are dealing with Spring Boot, there is one file that is application.properties. In that you can write the configuration of this project or this data source. Connection will be managed from that particular location itself. So these are the two main benefit of using this data source. Now, we have discussed a lot about Spring JDBC, what it does, how much it is different from normal JDBC. Then we have discussed about what is JDBC template. Then we have discussed about what is data source. Now we should create a project. Then only we will understand that how good it is or how bad it is. Right? Because all of this is theoretical thing. But before that, if you have any doubt in these three things, Spring JDBC And these all the comparison between the task sharing, then JDBC template, and then data source. If you have any question, you can ask. Any doubt in Spring JDBC connection pooling? Okay. For understanding connection pooling, let's understand about what is pooling as first. So pooling is a process where resources are shared between multiple users. Between multiple users. Pooling is a process for that. Now, what is the real and practical life example for pooling? So there are lot of example. One example is this, or let's understand it in a different way. I will give one different example. Let's say this is my mobile phone, right? I will have some of the internet in my mobile provided by any particular internet provider. It can be any company. Now, if I am saying that I am using a SIM card of Geo, and in which daily I am getting 2 GB of internet, 2 GB of internet. Now, is it possible? I will not open my hotspot. Is it possible that you can use my internet? So the answer is no. We cannot use anyone's internet. But there was a person who just wanted to use 100 MBs, and he said that I am having one important work. I don't want to make a recharge, because even if you are making a very small recharge, very small, it will cost you around monthly, I think 249 something like that it is. I don't know actually. So we are taking that it is costing you 249 rupees, and you don't want a monthly recharge. You just want to use 100 MB. You came to me and said, give me 100 MBs of internet only. So what I did, I just opened my hotspot and gave it to you, that with a limit that you can use only 100. We can set the limit in hotspot. So I have set that limit of 100 MBs, and now that person gave me some bucks. Any bucks means some rupees. In the ewas of those 100 MBs, what I did, I shared my resource. Anyhow, daily I am on the Wi-Fi only. Same day, daily, my 2 GB internet is wasted. I am never using it, because everywhere I am on Wi-Fi only. So I just share the resource. That is called pooling. So pooling is a process where resources are shared with each other. One more example. Now again I will try to give the example of cabs. This is city A and this is city B. Not only city, you can say place A, place B. Or let's say this is KPHB, and from KPHB you are going to airport, Hyderabad airport. And you have booked a cab from KPHB to Hyderabad airport. In general time means you are going in afternoon. like where traffic is very less, not high traffic, it will cost you around 600 to 700. And if you are going in peak hours like office timings, morning or evening, it can cost you around 1200 to 2000 also, right? Personal experience. Anyways, you have booked a cab from KPHB to Hyderabad airport and it is costing you 2000 rupees. It is costing you 2000 rupees. Now I am using one software from where I can track the travelers. So I saw there is one candidate who is at any particular place, um, any, let's say XYZ is the place name, and this person is also going to airport. And now if he is trying to book a cab to airport from his place, it is costing him 700 rupees. And it is possible, it can cost. But I saw that I am going from the same route and this XYZ will cross me or I will cross XYZ. So I just approached that why you are wasting 700 rupees? Come in my cab, give me 500, 400. So this is called resource pooling. I was having a resource with me, resource of cab. We just stopped at his place because we both are going at the same destination. So now I will pay 1600 or let's say 1500 rupees. My load is cancelled and he also saved 200 rupees. Right? So this is called pooling. I built a complete project on this, working project of Ola and Uber kind of thing. I approached them also because I don't want to run that you can purchase it, but they didn't. So I just sold it to Germany. And this project was written in React plus Java, means Spring Boot, where all the API calls were handled by using Spring Boot. Front end was written in React. It was an Android application because generally these things works on app. They don't work on website. App was creating using Java only. We can create mobile apps using Java. Nowadays it is not in too much fashion. Now Kotlin is there for mobile apps or React Native. One more technology is there, Flutter. And for iOS, means for Apple mobiles, Swift is there. You can use React Native and Flutter also. Anyways, that is not our discussion. This is resource pooling, where you are pooling the resources. Now, when we did JDBC last time, once the connection is closed, there is no trick to use it back again. No trick. You cannot use it again. But here we are saying that it is data sources supporting connection pooling. We can reuse the connection. We don't have to create it again and again. We don't have to create the connection again and again. We can just reuse it where you ever you have created. So where we can create it in the container, right? Now what we will do in case of normal JDBC, this is your Java class app.java and it is having connection con. It is having connection con. Now it can't share. If there is any other class, create your own connection. But instead of this, we can place the connection in the IOC container. Now IOC container can be created using two things, application context and bean factory. And which one we are using? Bean factory. Application context. Now this connection is in the container. as a bean. Now you can call this connection anytime you want. You can call this connection anytime you want, and it will do the configurations for you. Now let's try to build a project here. Steps of creating a Spring JDBC project. Remember, I am not writing Spring Boot, I am writing Spring JDBC because there is a difference between Spring and Spring Boot. First, we will see it with normal Spring, then we will see it with Spring Boot. So, for normal Spring, what we have to do? Create a Maven project. Create a Maven project by selecting the archetype as quick start. So go back to Eclipse. We will close all these things. I will create a new Maven project. So new Maven project in the same location. So click on next. Archetype you can search here. Before searching the archetype, make sure that your catalog is selected to internal. Your catalog is selected to internal. Otherwise, it will give you lot of things. So you can get a confusion. So select the catalog as internal and search quick start. So you will get this one. Select group ID. I will keep as com.jdbc only. Artifact ID I will keep as Spring JDBC. Artifact ID I will keep as Spring JDBC. Finish it. Check the configuration. Everything is coming fine. Just hit Y and hit enter. Right? Hit Y and hit enter. And here our project is created. Spring JDBC. Now it is a empty project with one app.java class like this, right? So hello world it is printing. You can check the working of this project. So just run the file. Project is working fine. Can I say that this is a Spring project? Can I say this is a Spring project? How? No. Then what I have to do to create it as a Spring project? At least add the jar files or the dependencies. As it is a Maven project, so I will add the dependency in this pom.xml file. Pom.xml file. How? What is the website for that? MVN repository. So I will search the dependency of Spring Core here. Spring Core. And I will keep the version as 6.2.5. Right? 6.2.5. See, I said the one thing when I was starting the course, that current version is 6.2.5, which was just launched on 90th of March. But 2 days back, we got a new version, 6.2.6. So we will keep 6.2.5 only. Copy. paste. Save the file. And now we got the jar files of Spring Core and Spring JCL. But we want to create a container also. For creating container, which kind of container we are creating? Application context. So we will add the dependency of Spring context as well. And here also 6.2.6 is available, but we will use 6.2.5 only. Never use the latest launched version, those who are launched 1 or 2 days ago. We will say it again, and this time we got jar file of micrometer, Spring AOP, Spring Bean, Spring Context, and Spring Expression. So all these jar files we got. So at first creating a Maven project by selecting the archetype as quick start. In the second step, add the dependency of Spring Core and Spring Context in pom.xml file. Full form of pom, project object model. Added. Very good. Now in this particular part, I will say we will create container here. We will create container. But for creating container, we have to write something like this: application context container equals to. When we are doing this particular part, we have actually two options. One, we can create class path XML application context, where we have to do XML configuration, or else we can do annotation based configuration. Annotation config application context. Remember or forgot how to create container? So I am creating a annotation config application context. But we have to give one container address also. We have to give here the container address also. So in the same package, I will create a new package, or else in this same package I will create a new class. I will create the class as Java config. What I will do? I will say Java config. So I have created one class. I will configure all the beans with the help of Java. So the next step is, within the same package, create a new class as Java config. If you remember the concept, I want to say that this is my container. What I have to do? What I have to do? I have to give one annotation. What annotation? At the rate of configuration annotation, which is the substitute of DTD. Right? Now, sorted. Now this is a container. As we are going to create beans here only, so something like this bean we will create here. So I am not writing any at the rate of component scan here. Where we write at the rate of component scan? When this Java config class is saying I don't have any bean, search the beans in my package. But I will not keep this at the rate of component scan. I will remove that. And here I will remove this bean for a minute. Java config is my class name. So here I will give the same thing, Java config dot class. Now you can try to run the app by giving a message here that container is created. Container is created. I will run it and we are not getting any error. It means that this particular line is running exactly fine. Container is created. We have discussed about something as data source. We have discussed about something as data source. So in Java config class, I will try to create a method for it. So I will say data source, and if you check, you are getting these things, data source, data source, data source. Here, these are the options that you can use. But we are going to work with JDBC, right? And we have to add connector, all those things. So in the pom.xml file, so within the same package, create a new class as Java config and annotate the class with at the rate of configuration. After that, in app.java, which is your main class, create the annotation config application context container. Application config, annotation config, application context container. In the next step, in pom.xml file, add the dependency of two things, MySQL driver and Spring JDBC. What? MySQL driver and Spring JDBC. Last time our JDBC was coming in Java version, right? When we were seeing the JDBC website on Oracle, so Oracle was telling that it comes with the latest version of, you automatically get both packages when you download Java SE. So it is telling that you will get JDBC when you download Java, means JDK. But here you will not get Spring JDBC. For that we have to add dependency. So at first I will search dependency of Spring JDBC. So here I got Spring JDBC. Open it. Same version 6.2.5. Copy and paste. pom.xml file. And save. So after adding the dependency for Spring JDBC, what we got? We got any particular jar file, that is Spring JDBC and Spring TX transactions. Now as my database is MySQL, so I need MySQL. I will teach this with Oracle also. Don't worry. So we need MySQL connector as well. So simple MySQL connector J. And we will use the version as 9.1 or 0, anyone you can use. I will go with 9.1. And here we got the jar files for MySQL connector also. Now, again we will go to our container. This is our container. If this was not our container, it was normal JDBC. So we were doing these things here, class dot for name, and here we have to write com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot driver, right? But if I am doing the same thing here, com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot driver, if I am doing these things here, right? If I am doing these things here, in that case, the connection will be managed by app class. Again, you can't pull it, but this time I will try to create connection inside a container. And this is my container Java config. So what you are thinking here, that we will create a public void anything connection like this, and you will try to do class dot for name, class dot. So answer is no. We are not going to follow this approach. Then what approach we will follow? So the answer is this data source class. This data source class will actually give you some of the extended support. Now you are seeing here data source factory, data source initializer, data source lookup failure, transaction manager, utils, lot of thing it is giving you, right? It is giving you lot of things. As this data source is an extension of driver manager. It is a, last time we were using driver manager. This time we will use driver manager data source. What we will use? Driver manager data source. I will make this as a public method. So public driver manager data source. You can name method anything, DMDS. It means that driver manager data source. So here I have created the method, and the method is of type driver manager data source. Now what is this class? This is a class. So let's read about this class. Driver manager data source. This is the class, public class driver manager data source, which is extending abstract driver based data source. Now it has some methods: set URL, set username, set password. So these kind of thing it is having. And when you are calling, there is one method inside this, set driver class name. We have one method, set driver class name, that is you have to provide the driver class name. Then it has a connection method, get connection from driver manager. Now if this is a class driver manager data source and I have created a method of type driver manager data source, then what it will return? Driver manager data source. If it is a int method, then it will return a int value. Now int value can come from anywhere. Now you can directly return 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or else you can say something like this: You can do some operations inside this. You can say int num equals to 4, int sum equals to num plus 5, and then you are returning sum from here, that return sum. That is also possible, right? That is also possible. So our discussion is, if there is a method and the method name is driver manager data source, it should return the same thing. So let's try to create a object of this class inside. So I will say driver manager data source ds equals to new driver manager data source, right? And now this is the object of the same class which I will return. Return ds. Return ds. Now in this driver manager, I will try to do something. So I will say ds dot set driver class name. What I am saying? ds dot set driver class name. And what is my driver class name? In case of MySQL, the driver class name is com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot driver. Now here you are not loading any class dot for name getter setter methods you are getting. So ds dot set driver class name. Very good. Now ds dot set connection properties. Connection properties. Or let's say here I am not doing the connection as first. Here I will say ds dot set URL. ds dot set URL. What is the URL in case of MySQL database? What is the URL in case of MySQL JDBC colon MySQL colon double forward slash localhost colon 3306 slash, we have to write the database name as well. So database name is JDBC2. Yesterday only we created. After that we will do ds dot set username. What is my username? Root. What is my username? Root. ds dot set password. What is my password? Root. Root is my password. And now as we know that driver manager returns one connection, I will convert this method to a bean, that this is a Java bean, so that Spring can manage it. Now as this method is returning driver manager data source, in app.java our container is already created. Now I will try to say connection con equals to container dot get bean of what? Driver manager data source dot class. And now when we are doing this, this is the problem. Casting is the problem now. As this Java config bean is returning driver manager data source, and here we are trying to accept as a connection. So we can do the casting to connection. We can cast it to connection. So sorted. Now let's try to print a message here, and we will say connection with the database is created. Connection with the database is created. Now, when we are running this part, this is what we are getting, and it is expected also. And what it is telling? It is telling you that driver manager data source cannot be cast to class connection. Means we cannot do this particular kind of casting. So here, this is a connection, and I am not able to get the connection. Right? We are not able to get the connection. So now we have to do something else. What? Now here we are writing bean class name, but we can find the bean with their method name also, or else you can give one name to the bean. And now the next thing after this we'll do in the next session. But this is how we set the values here and convert them to a bean. Now, as the container, already I said for Oracle I will show it. This time I will do at first for MySQL and then for Oracle. There also you just have to change driver class name, URL, username, and whatever details you have to change. And now we can reuse this connection. But why and how? Because container is managing this. So we don't have to worry about difference between controller and configuration. Okay, so let's see what is the difference between controller and configuration. So whenever there is any class, let's say public class main, now you are writing at the rate of controller over, means that this main class is a bean. Main class is a bean. What it is? It's a bean. But configuration is written here. Configuration means that this main class is a, if configuration is written here, then it means main class is a POC container which is managing the bean, which is managing the bean. That is the difference between. We connect again on. Bye bye.